2021 was a bit of a strange year for video games. On one hand, it saw the PS5 and Series X's first full year on the market, and both consoles got their fair share of great games. It also saw the Switch continue to truck on and get a nice upgrade in the form of the beautiful Switch OLED model. On the other hand, it was also a year plagued by console shortages and countless game delays caused by the ongoing effects of the pandemic, which led to a pretty slow release schedule for the first half of the year. Nonetheless, when all was said and done, 2021 was still a strong and varied year for games, with plenty of quality releases in both the indie and AAA spaces. So I'm here to run you through my 25 favourite games of 2021. Before we jump into the list, I'd like to get a couple of ground rules I set for myself out of the way. Firstly, I chose not to include any remasters or re-releases on this list, so don't expect to see things like Death Stranding Director's Cut, Mass Effect Legendary Edition, or Skyward Sword HD. Secondly, I also won't be including DLC on this list. So Ghost of Tsushima's Iki Island expansion and Final Fantasy VII Remake's Episode Intermission DLC won't be appearing on this list either. And finally, I want to give a quick shout out to a few games that I've been playing but haven't finished yet. I think Forza Horizon 5, Shin Megami Tensei 5, Lost Judgment, and Tales of Arise all had the potential to be on this list, but as I've yet to complete them, I don't feel comfortable ranking them here. Now, without further ado, let's get right into it. Aliens Fireteam Elite was a game that could have gone either way. The quality of games set in the Aliens universe has fluctuated wildly over the years, and Cold Iron Studios were an unproven quantity. Fortunately, Fireteam Elite turned out to be one of the better Aliens games. It's a fun co-op shooter with a varied arsenal of weapons and gear to utilise as you mow your way through thousands upon thousands of xenomorphs. Cold Iron Studios' reverence for the Aliens franchise shines through at every corner of Fireteam Elite. The way they've managed to masterfully bring the visuals and sounds of the Aliens world to life in this game make it not only a good shooter, but one of the most authentic feeling recreations of this universe that we've ever seen. The Gunk managed to sneak into this list at the last second after releasing right at the end of 2021. This new game from the team behind the SteamWorld series saw the studio venture into 3D for the first time, which is no small feat. The Gunk tells the story of two astronauts who land on a world infected by some kind of parasitic goo. One of these astronauts then equips a vacuum-powered glove and sets out to clear the planet of this goo and find the source behind it, so she can restore the planet to its former vibrant and beautiful state. While the Gunk is a fairly simple game in terms of mechanics, there's still something very gratifying about exploring its alien world and using the suction power of your glove to clear the gunk that's corrupting the planet. The Gunk is also a tightly paced adventure that you'll easily tear through in a couple of sittings, which is refreshing when so many games ask for dozens of hours of your time. I'm generally much more of a single-player person, so it's rare for a multiplayer game to really grab me, but for a while there, I was completely addicted to Splitgate. Splitgate's gunplay feels great, and its unique blend of arena shooter and Portal make it unlike anything else on the market. It's so easy to imagine how this concept could be disorientating and frustrating, but somehow it's not, which just goes to show how good 1047's gameplay and level design are. Opening a portal across the battlefield and taking enemies out one by one as they stumble in front of it was one of the most satisfying experiences I had in a game all year. CyberConnect are the go-to studio when you want an anime faithfully adapted into a video game, and Demon Slayer: The Hinokami Chronicles is another great example of why that is. The Hinokami Chronicles brings the thrilling action set pieces of Demon Slayer to life through its blend of 3D arena battles and gorgeous quick-time event-driven cutscenes. And while it might not be the most technical fighter on the market, it's still a fun game, and there's an undeniable thrill to playing as your favourite characters and pulling off all their special moves that you've seen countless times in the anime. People had been clamouring for another Pokemon Snap game for 2 decades since the original launched on N64 back in 1999, and in 2021 they finally got it. New Pokemon Snap is a worthy sequel to its fan-favourite predecessor that takes the concept of the original and fleshes it out into a significantly more developed and substantial experience, with a far more varied selection of maps to explore and Pokemon to photograph. While it won't be to everyone's taste, for those that it clicks with, it's a pleasant and relaxing experience that provides the perfect way to wind down between more intense and involved experiences. Outriders was one of the first games that really got its hooks into me in 2021. While its story is utter nonsense, its gameplay is so incredibly satisfying that I didn't even care. Combining gunplay with energy attacks to decimate everything in your path made Outriders combat feel unlike anything else this year. It's also a game that's continued to receive support throughout the year, so if you jump in now, you'll find an even more robust content lineup than there was at the time I reviewed it. Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl may not be the strongest games in the Pokemon series due to their simple art style and complete lack of challenge, but they're still very good games, and a great reminder to me that Pokemon is just perfect video game comfort food. I dove into Brilliant Diamond over the Christmas period and had a great time. There's something so cozy about the Pokemon world, and the aspect of filling out the Pokédex really scratches the collecting itch for me. Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl's strongest aspect is the Grand Underground, a giant map below the main map where you can catch different Pokemon and mine for resources in a surprisingly addictive minigame. It's so easy to lose hours upon hours exploring the Grand Underground. Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl also offer one of the most robust endgames in the series that lets you fill in your national Pokédex as you catch an assortment of legendary Pokemon from the 3 generations prior to Diamond and Pearl, which makes it an ideal handheld game that you can keep coming back to long after you've taken down the Elite Four. While the Far Cry series hasn't evolved all that much since Far Cry 3 came out almost a decade ago, I still always have a great time with each new entry. Clearing out the map of a Far Cry game by taking over bases and slowly dismantling a villain's operation has always given me an unmatched sense of catharsis, and Far Cry 6 was no exception. Far Cry 6 lets you wreak havoc across its open world playground with the series' most varied and over-the-top assortment of weapons yet. And that's really saying something, as the series has never shied away from its absurd side. It also gave us the most menacing Far Cry villain yet, in the form of Anton Castile, who was played by none other than Giancarlo Esposito. Castile proved to be not only the best Far Cry villain yet, but one of the most memorable characters of 2021. Housemarque have been one of the industry's most underappreciated studios for the past 15 years. From Super Stardust HD, to Dead Nation, to Resogun, to Nex Machina, they've provided countless incredible twin-stick shooter experiences. But in 2021, they diverged from that formula and gave us their biggest and most ambitious game yet, Returnal. Returnal's roguelike structure allowed it to maintain the addictive one more try feeling of Housemarque's previous releases, while ditching the top-down / side-on perspective of their prior games for third-person shooter mechanics. Gunplay felt great in Returnal, and it quickly became one of the PS5's best showpieces thanks to its incredible visuals, which featured some of the best particle effects I've ever seen, and its excellent implementation of the DualSense controller, which allows you to become more immersed than ever, thanks to the haptic feedback, which lets you feel the subtle pitter-patter of rain in your hands, and the way the adaptive triggers add additional tension as you fire your weapon at enemies. Returnal is also significantly more story-driven than Housemarque's prior games, and its uncomfortable atmosphere and intriguing time loop mystery were a large part of why I was constantly drawn back to Returnal. Man, just talking about this game makes me want to jump in for another run. Speaking of studios doing something different, Unpacking is the latest game from Witchbeam, who previously made the twin-stick shooter Assault Android Cactus, and this game could not be any more different from that. Unpacking is a game all about moving house. It follows a person throughout different stages of their life as they move into different rooms, houses, and apartments. Unpacking's gameplay consists purely of unpacking boxes and finding places in your home to place their contents. On paper, this could sound tedious, but I found it to be very satisfying and surprisingly therapeutic. Not only does Unpacking succeed in being one of the most relaxing games of the year, it also manages to tell a poignant and heartfelt story with almost no words, as you see someone transition through multiple stages of their life based on their different living situations and the possessions that you're unpacking. Cyber Shadow is a beautiful and challenging love letter to the NES Ninja Gaiden games, but unlike those games, it also had the benefit of learning from those games' mistakes, which let Mechanical Head modernise this style of side-scroller in a way that makes Cyber Shadow's difficulty feel a lot more justified and fair than the games that inspired it. Cyber Shadow also featured some of 2021's best pixel art and an absolutely killer soundtrack. If you have even a shred of nostalgia for Ninja Gaiden and games of its ilk, you owe it to yourself to check out Cyber Shadow. The original Psychonauts never fully clicked with me. I didn't play it at the time, and whenever I tried to go back and play it, I found it felt a bit too dated, so I wasn't sure what I'd be getting with Psychonauts 2. Fortunately, I really enjoyed this game. It was one of those games that I grew to like more and more the longer I played it. If you summed up Psychonauts 2 in one word, it would be creative. It's visually creative, mechanically creative, and narratively creative. It's also Double Fine at their weirdest. Psychonauts 2 is strange as hell, and that's a wonderful thing. As I was jumping into people's minds, helping them process their issues through Psychonauts 2's plethora of platforming challenges, I was constantly reminded that I'd never played anything quite like this. That's an incredible feeling, and not one I experience all that often after 20 plus years of playing video games. Deathloop has been one of the most anticipated PS5 games for a long time, and it was shown at nearly every PlayStation event for a year straight, so it was clear that Sony also had a lot of confidence in it. As it turns out, they had good reason to be. Deathloop's intriguing central mystery, excellent voice acting, and open-ended gameplay that truly allows you to tackle problems any way you like make it one of the PS5's best games yet. Kena feels like a throwback to the PS2 generation in the best way possible. It maintains the spirit of the 3D action-adventure games we got back in the day, but merges them with modern game design concepts. Kena's gorgeous Pixar-esque art style meant that it immediately attracted a lot of curiosity when it was shown at the PS5 reveal event, but I always questioned if its gameplay could back up its impressive visuals. Kena managed to deliver on both of these fronts. Not only was Kena arguably 2021's best looking game, but its whimsical world was a joy to explore, its combat was satisfying, and it managed to tell a heartfelt story about death and grief without ever feeling morbid or depressing. Persona might be my favourite game franchise of all time, so I'm always down to check out whatever new spin-off is released. But I really wasn't sure how I'd get along with Strikers, as it's incredibly rare for a Musou to hold my attention. Fortunately though, I absolutely loved Persona 5 Strikers, and it provided way more than I ever could have expected. Its story serves as a full-blown sequel to Persona 5, reuniting the Phantom Thieves after months apart. It was such a pleasure to see all of these characters again, and I was surprised by how quickly I grew to love Strikers' new characters as well. While there's something undeniably satisfying about tearing through thousands and thousands of enemies, the reason Musous don't usually click for me is because I find them way too repetitive, and their mechanics have usually grown stale for me within a few hours. But Strikers infuse just enough mechanics from the core Persona series, like summoning and fusing different personas, and using different elemental attacks to take advantage of enemy weaknesses, to keep Strikers engaging throughout. Strikers also does a remarkable job of replicating the style and vibe of Persona 5, both visually and musically, which is no small feat. In fact, some of its remixes of songs from Persona 5 are even better than the originals, and that's pretty damn impressive, seeing as Persona 5 already has one of the best game soundtracks ever. Scarlet Nexus was my biggest gaming surprise of 2021. I had no real expectations for Scarlet Nexus going in, and despite its unnecessarily convoluted story, I completely fell in love with it. I was enamoured with Scarlet Nexus's slick anime aesthetic and incredible character design, including the designs of its plant-based enemies, which were among the most bizarre creature designs I've ever seen. Its blend of satisfying and stylish hack-and-slash mechanics and psychic powers made it one of the year's most fun games to play. Scarlet Nexus's dual protagonist setup, where your choice of character affects the gameplay and story, also meant that Scarlet Nexus had an absurd amount of replay value, and because of that, I couldn't pry myself away from it until I had the Platinum Trophy. At this point, I feel comfortable saying that the original Shovel Knight is among my favourite games of all time, so I'm down to play any spin-off or DLC expansion set in its world. But even I was a little skeptical if a Match 3 puzzle game was something I wanted to see out of the series. Fortunately, it turns out I was stupid for ever doubting Vine and Yacht Club. Shovel Knight Pocket Dungeon is fantastic. Pocket Dungeon's mechanics diverge from most Match 3 games by making most of the objects you're breaking enemies who also deal damage to you when you hit them. This means that you'll also need to manage your own health bar by manoeuvring your way around the screen to collect health potions. Pocket Dungeon also has a big and varied roster of playable characters that each have their own abilities. This adds a lot more depth and variety to Pocket Dungeon than you'd usually find in a puzzle game. This is the kind of game where the hours just melt away as you keep telling yourself one more try until you look at the clock and realise it's suddenly 2 AM. Hitman 3 was the first big release of 2021, and it proved to be one of the best games of the entire year. This whole Hitman trilogy has been excellent, and Hitman 3 capped it off wonderfully with the series' best game yet. Hitman 3's vast and varied maps provide ample opportunities to take out Agent 47's latest lineup of victims in the most absurd and creative ways. Each map has such a ridiculous degree of attention to detail that you'll likely find entirely new ways to tackle the mission each time you replay a map. I'd be remiss to not give particular props to the Dartmoor Manor map. It blends Hitman's signature style of chaos and shenanigans with a Knives Out style murder mystery, and it is sheer genius. It's not just the best level in Hitman 3, but the best level in Hitman's 20+ year history, and one of the most memorable levels I've ever had the pleasure of playing through. If you exclude remakes, it's been almost 20 years since the last 2D Metroid game was released, with Metroid Fusion on the Game Boy Advance. Needless to say, expectations for this game were high, and that's not even taking into account that the name Metroid Dread has a long history for Nintendo fans, with rumours of a game called Metroid Dread swirling since the DS days. Yet somehow, this game managed to meet people's colossal expectations. Hell, I'd say it even exceeded my expectations. Metroid Dread is a meticulously designed Metroidvania, and its sense of adventure and exploration illustrate everything that makes this genre so special. It also perfectly juggles the balancing act of being a satisfying sequel to the games that came before it for fans of the Metroid canon, while also being a decent jumping on point for people who are new to the series. Though if you are new to the series, be forewarned that Metroid Dread doesn't hold your hand, and its bosses will kick your ass at the drop of a hat. But it also never feels unfair. It's so perfectly balanced that whenever I died, I knew it was my own fault, and I knew exactly what I did wrong, and just wanted to jump straight back in and try again. I'd describe myself as a casual Halo fan. I've played every Halo game, and always enjoyed their combat a lot, but the series has never resonated with me in the same way that it has so many others. So while I was looking forward to Infinite, I wasn't ravenously excited for it by any means. But after a poor first showing, it's remarkable how much 343 managed to turn things around with Infinite. I think this game is something truly special. It manages to recapture the feeling of the original game's world and tone, while reinvigorating the series by giving Infinite Halo's first ever open world playground to explore. Halo Infinite's awesome sandbox gives you access to a myriad of different weapons and vehicles that allow you to cause utter chaos in an endless variety of ways. Oh, and did I mention the grappling hook that can be used to zip around the environment, grab weapons from mid-air, and pull yourself straight to enemies and vehicles? Honestly, what game isn't made better by the inclusion of a grappling hook? And I haven't even touched on the hours of fun I had squaring off against adversaries across Halo Infinite's masterfully designed lineup of multiplayer maps and modes. Halo Infinite is the best shooter I played this year, and easily my favourite Halo game yet. I'm a huge comic book dork, so Guardians was always going to be a day one purchase for me, but I definitely had a lot of concerns about the game going in. I think Guardians of the Galaxy was let down by its marketing in a major way, with its trailers being clumsily edited and filled with stilted dialogue and jokes that fell flat. Fortunately, once I actually got my hands on Guardians, all my fears were alleviated. The dialogue and jokes worked way better in context, and Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy perfectly nailed the most important aspect of the Guardians, which is the chemistry and interpersonal dynamics between the team. I loved this take on the Guardians. It felt like it took the best elements of the characters' comic and movie counterparts and combined them into near-perfect new iterations of the characters, who were brought to life by an all-around terrific voice cast. In fact, this game's excellent writing gives characters like Gamora a level of depth that the movies are yet to achieve, and I say that as someone who loves the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. Of course, this game wouldn't be anywhere near this high on my list if it didn't also deliver with its gameplay. Thankfully, it does. Combat in Guardians is a total blast. Shooting away at enemies as Star-Lord while simultaneously issuing commands to the other Guardians in order to drive up your combo meter as high as possible is so much fun, and fights only continue to get better as you fill in the skill tree and unlock more abilities for the Guardians, which in turn provides you with new and interesting ways to combine the unique abilities of each Guardian. Death's Door was another huge surprise for me this year. It was one of the games shown at E3 that really piqued my interest. I was drawn in by its art style and the design of its crow protagonist, who serves as an avian version of Death. So when it released a couple of months later, I was ready to jump in day one based on its aesthetic alone. But what I got with Death's Door was so much more than I could have ever expected. I truly think Death's Door is one of the best Zelda-like games ever made. Death's Door's world design and puzzles are clever, its boss fights are epic, and its combat mechanics revel in their relative simplicity, forcing you to learn enemy patterns and master timing your parries perfectly. It's also always awesome to see a team evolve and grow, and Death's Door is such a huge leap forward from Acid Nerve's prior game Titan Souls, and that says a lot, because Titan Souls was also pretty damn good. In my eyes, there's an indie gem that swings in and steals the show practically every year, and in 2021, Death's Door was that game for me. So I was glad to see so many people evangelising Death's Door in recent Game of the Year discussions. I've had a soft spot for the Life is Strange series since the first game, but it was when Deck 9 took a crack at the series with Life is Strange Before the Storm that I truly fell in love with Life is Strange. So I was ecstatic that they were returning to the series for True Colours, and my faith in them was well placed. Life is Strange True Colours is the best Life is Strange game by a mile. Alex Chen is a phenomenal character, and easily the series' best protagonist yet. The writing and performances are a significant step above anything found in any of the prior Life is Strange games, and it can't be overstated what a huge leap forward for the series True Colours is visually. Something I truly appreciate about True Colours is that it's not afraid to tackle difficult subjects like grief, mental health issues, and dementia, which makes True Colours a truly emotional experience at times. And it not only shines a light on these subjects, but handles them with grace and respectfulness. These story beats could have so easily come off as ham-fisted if the game was in the hands of a less capable studio. True Colours isn't all doom and gloom though. It's also punctuated by moments of levity that are often just as emotionally resonant as its more heartbreaking moments. And there's one scene that's a perfect showcase of this. One of the most memorable sequences in Before the Storm was the game of D&D that Chloe played with Steph, and True Colours takes this concept and blows it out of the water by having Alex participate in a town-wide LARP. This entire sequence is so charming and a perfect encapsulation of Deck 9's creativity. True Colours' characters are so endearing, and its writing is so engaging, that it's easily my favourite video game story of 2021. Resident Evil is one of my favourite game series of all time. I've been obsessed with the world, lore, and gameplay of Resi since I was in high school, so needless to say, I've been loving the renaissance the series has been having with Resident Evil 7 and the remakes of 2 and 3. and if Village is anything to go by, the series is showing no signs of slowing up. Resident Evil Village is amazing. In fact, it's a top 3 Resident Evil game of all time for me, joining the ranks of Resident Evil 2 Remake and Resident Evil 4. Village gave me everything I want out of a Resident Evil game. Breathtaking locations to explore, exciting combat encounters, rewarding puzzle solving, and a remarkable cast of villains to take down. I love how Village embraces so many subgenres of horror and doesn't shy away from leaning into the weird side of Resident Evil. It also delivers on the difficult task of being a satisfying continuation of the Resident Evil mythos, while also being a great direct sequel to Resident Evil 7 by providing a fulfilling sense of closure to so many of the plot threads set up in that game. Village is a game packed to the brim with memorable moments, be it the chilling encounters with Lady Dimitrescu as she hunts you through her mansion, the oppressive atmosphere that surrounds you as you explore the village itself, or the horrors that await you in House Beneviento, which may very well be the scariest sequence in any Resident Evil game. And finally, we arrive at my favourite game of 2021, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart. Insomniac just don't miss. When it comes down to it, Rift Apart is just a joy to play. I don't think there was any other game in 2021 that I had more fun with moment to moment. I had such a great time jumping from planet to planet and collecting everything there was to find in Rift Apart, and by the time it was over, I was genuinely a little sad that there was nothing left for me to do. Rift Apart is also a technical marvel, and the best showcase of a next-gen console yet. Not only is it ridiculously beautiful, with its lush environments, absurdly detailed fur textures, and stunning ray tracing, but it also provides the best showcase of how these new consoles can provide new ways to play games. Its portal-based set pieces that are made possible by the PS5's SSD see you being flung between a variety of different worlds without even a second of loading. These moments are nothing short of spectacular, and unlike anything I've ever seen in a game before. Maybe the most unexpected part of Rift Apart was series newcomer Rivet, a female multiverse equivalent of Ratchet. I've been playing Ratchet games for so long, and I'm so fond of Ratchet & Clank themselves, that I just couldn't imagine how Insomniac would make me excited to play as a new character for half the game. Boy was I wrong. Rivet is awesome. She's a shockingly well-rounded character, and by the time I finished Rift Apart, I really did care about her just as much as I care about Ratchet & Clank. Rift Apart is the PS5's killer app, the best next-gen game yet, and my personal favourite game of 2021. And there you have it. That's my top 25 games of 2021. What was your game of the year? Did it make my list? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, subscribe, or leave a comment. Be sure to stay tuned for my next video, where we'll be taking a look forward at some of the biggest games coming in 2022. And if you're interested in seeing more of my videos, you can check the description of this video, where I'll include links to every game review I posted in 2021.